Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm your host, Aaron Dykes. Today is Monday, July 30th, 2012. Here's a look at what's lined up for tonight.
Tonight on the INFOWARS Nightly News, DHS prepares for civil unrest as Obama is poised to destroy the Second Amendment, and the U.S. Army is buying riot gear as fears of civil unrest grow. And we have a special report from John Bound on the Batman massacre, highlighting evidence of a second shooter. And finally, Aaron meets with Dan Graber of oilprice.com to talk about how an uprising in Syria could affect the global oil market. All this, plus Predator drones flying over North Dakota in tonight's INFOWARS Nightly News.
So let's lead off with some warm-hearted individuals that want to take your guns. Yes, gun control is in the air, and it's, of course, got the Democrats involved. We've got a cybersecurity bill in the Senate. They're trying to ram that through, saying they're voting on it this week. Meanwhile, it's been found that there's gun control hidden in one of these amendments, which surely shouldn't be allowed, but routinely happen in this monster legislations page after page. In this case, it's led by Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, who has his own concealed carry gun permits and shoots quite often and has bodyguards, but doesn't want you to have it. Let's have some reasonable gun control, he says, in conjunction with this rider, this amendment for the Cybersecurity Act, which is itself quite dangerous all on its own without this hidden gun control. At any rate, you've got a handful of common Democratic senators, Barbara Boxer, Feinstein, the rest of them, who want to make it illegal to transfer, buy, or even possess clips with more than 10 bullets in them, or even semi-autos that could take more than 10 bullets. That's almost every gun, folks. It's a wide range, and they want to include, of course, gun magazines, belts, feed stripes, drums, and all these scary-sounding words. Why would anyone need these things? It's protection from the government. Everyone knows that, but they want to make it sound reasonable. Schumer says maybe we could come together on guns, talking about Democrats, Republicans, come together in the middle. If each side gave some, they always want us to give up just a little of our rights. Do not infringe. That's the Second Amendment. Do not infringe. Shall not infringe. Do not infringe. No, we don't move towards the middle on this. It's a do not cross line. It's a line held by individual Americans. That's the whole reason we have a Bill of Rights, to offset tyrannical government. It was a greater protection because many of the wise founding fathers in the founding day did not trust the power given to the federal government under the Constitution. That's why they insisted before ratifying at the state level the Bill of Rights. That's really what's going on there. But Schumer doesn't see it that way. He wants you to think it's reasonable, just have a few little control things in there. We're not talking about radical gun control, just rational gun control. But why are the Republicans also calling for gun control? They're supposed to be pro-Second Amendment. They're supposed to be the group that's really fighting for our rights. Well, obviously, we can't hold our breath. Judge Scalia, Supreme Court Justice, opened the door for this, saying that D.C. Heller was just the beginning of new decisions for gun control, while they upheld the right to have a handgun in D.C. after the long-standing ban. It actually was just opening the door. Let's play part of that clip now.
My starting point and probably my ending point will be what limitations are within the understood limitations that the society had at the time. They had some limitations on the nature of arms that could be borne. So we'll see what those limitations are as applied to modern weapons.
And, of course, he makes the non sequitur argument that menacing with a weird or particularly disturbing seeming weapon was recognized by the founders. That has nothing to do with the actual right to keep and bear arms. Yeah, if you go and use that weapon to menace someone, obviously that's a crime. There's already things on the books to deal with that. We don't need to conflate that with reasons for gun control or saying it's okay because the founding fathers had that in mind. Read the quotes, I dare you. None of them are for gun control, no matter what side they were on. But Scalia is just the beginning of so many of them. You saw Rupert Murdoch, you saw Bill Kristol, all phony conservatives, not real conservatives, but very much leaders of the GOP, all calling for gun control. And now Bill O'Reilly has jumped on that bandwagon as well.
And of course, that's true, but it also makes sense for Congress to pass a new law that requires the sale of all heavy weapons to be reported to the FBI. In this age of terrorism, that law is badly needed.
And there's more of that clip, of course, but Michael Savage has also made comments. We'll play a few seconds of that as well.
Why was this idiot allowed to go buy a drum magazine for a 223 rifle, an AR-15 convert? I don't know what the AR-15 was. I once owned an AR-15, but they became illegal in California with a certain stock. I got rid of it. I own a Ruger Mini 14, which shoots a 223. They're wonderful weapons, but I don't have a drum magazine. What do I need a drum magazine for? Where in the world is it written that an average citizen should be able to buy a drum magazine that holds 100 rounds of ammunition? That is a military drum. It's for military use only. Now, I know many of you say, oh, in case the government, we're going to fight the government. Please, I don't want to hear that anymore.
And that's just a small smattering of all the people on the so-called right who are joining in this chorus for banning, quote, semi-autos, for banning assault weapons, for banning these multiple round drums. This is about protection from tyranny. We know that Homeland Security has geared up with 450 hollow point rounds, with all their riot gear control. The Army's doing the same thing. They're prepared for civil unrest and riots that they are going to cause. That's why Americans are not stupid. They're buying guns and they're getting ready just in case. Nobody wants a fight. None of the people, anyway. The government, on the other hand, is menacing and coldly circling around us and pretending there's this false debate between left and right and that they're about to agree on, quote, reasonable measures. Meanwhile, has anyone actually studied the real case concerning the Batman shootings? Well, John Bounds has been following the evidence. He's got some pretty important connections about how they never even followed up on the other reports of other shooters, yet it made the police scanners, witnesses at the theater, all brought this issue up, but it's not good enough for the police chief. Let's roll that footage now.
Police Chief Dan Oates issues this immediate public statement claiming there is just one shooter.
Every single indicator is that this is all Mr. Holmes's activity and that he wasn't particularly aided by anyone else.
This is the same police chief that presided over a blatant violation of the Fourth Amendment by illegally cuffing and detaining 40 innocent people, including women and children, for over 2 hours while looking for a bank robber. Early on, the police scanner supports the one-shooter theory.
16 Adam, I need a marked car behind the theater, stable side. Got a suspect in a gas mask.
09, okay, and we need cars south side, suspect in a gas mask.
The mainstream media promotes the one-shooter theory.
And honestly, for the record, there was only one guy. Yes, actually, the shooting probably lasted probably for about a minute or two.
But according to the police scanner, another suspect is spotted just 3 minutes later.
321, one of the shooters might be wearing a white and blue plaid shirt.
Copy, outstanding. Shooter possibly wearing a white and blue plaid shirt.
He had his foot propped open by the door, and from the crack, it looked like he was signaling somebody or looking for somebody to come his way.
From what we saw, he wasn't alone. He had someone with him because the second can of tear gas didn't come from his side. He was completely dressed in black, head to toe. From what we saw, it seemed like he had something over his face, probably to prevent him from breathing it in. And we can only assume that someone got him in because he was whatever he was wearing seemed thick, so I don't think he would really, I think he'd stand out in the crowd.
The one-shooter theory loses even more credibility when a second gas mask is discovered. How is it possible that 12 people were killed and 58 were injured by a semi-automatic weapon that jammed?
He shot easily 60 or 70 rounds.
Then there's the official story given by the president himself concerning the blood path behind the theater. Obama claims that this wound spilled what appears to be buckets of blood. In the aftermath, the vulture media swoops in, misquoting Holmes' mother regarding the shooting, causing her to issue this statement.
I did not know anything about a shooting in Aurora at that time. He asked if I was Arlene Holmes and if my son was James Holmes, who lives in Aurora, Colorado. I answered, yes, you have the right person.
Holmes' father worked for San Diego-based HNC Software Incorporated, a company that worked with DARPA to develop Cortronic neural networks. These enable machines to translate oral and visual stimuli and simulate human thinking. and Holmes' grandfather had deep ties into the intelligence framework of the U.S. military. The children of people with similar backgrounds are highly susceptible to exposure to monarch mind control. Using brainwashed patsies in PSYOP massacres has become a commonplace thread in American history as the shadow government strengthens its stranglehold on public perception.
Instead of really digging into why this apartment would be rigged to kill, but then Holmes would then warn police and then lawyer up and not say anything else, where he got the funding and the firearms training, and these eyewitness reports that there was more than one person, instead of asking those questions, national media want to focus all their attention on why guns were legal in the first place.
Now is the time to shine a light on the obvious motive behind this tragic event, the motive to pass the United Nations Treaty on Small Arms. John Bound, INFOWARS Nightly News.
And of course, we now know that the UN gun ban is on hold, but only for now. They may pass it after the election during a possible Obama lame duck session or when he's re-energized with the vote. But the points Bound makes in that video are so important, and the points that that one mainstream outlet made about why aren't they talking about all these questions about another shooter, the other gas mask, the unanswered questions, but instead we have to talk about gun control on the backs of all these victims when they want to just sympathize and put us into this delusional state where we feel sorry for the victims and are unable somehow to ask the relevant questions. Well, I'm thankful for one thing, and that is the backbone, the courage of the families of these members. And I don't say that lightly. We've got a clip. It was in that O'Reilly clip where he calls for gun control, yet it was on MSNBC where Jordan Garney, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name, but he has the courage to fight back against these MSNBC anchors as they try to goad him into being the excuse for gun control, and he instead says, no, this does not need to be politicized for greater gun control. You know when they did that before? The last time they tried to use a very unfortunate, tragic shooting to bring about gun control measures, but they thought better and didn't do it. That was after the Gabrielle Gifford shooting, and you had the father of that 9-year-old girl, Christina Taylor Greene. He stepped forward and had the courage to say we don't need to restrict Americans' freedoms just because a tragedy fell on his daughter and on the other people who were harmed at that shooting. That is courage. This other mainstream media talking point of getting everyone together behind the idea that guns kill people when it's people who kill people, as the bumper sticker goes, well, that's just a bunch of nonsense, and they're preying upon our weak minds when we're in the delusional state of thinking about the victims, thinking about our own mortality, and thinking about how can we fight back against what obviously most people don't want to happen, and that's the death of innocents, obviously. But, you know, there's another point that Bound just briefly makes in that package for about 2 seconds when they show the gun pointed at the 14-year-old kid, the little teenager. That was in Aurora, Colorado, just a couple months ago, the town that has a total gun ban, by the way. They had a bank robbery suspect, and they pulled over hundreds, dozens of cars for 2 hours, handcuffed all the adults, as you saw, put guns to minors' faces because they had a suspected bank robber, didn't know anything about them, including gender, race, anything. No physical description. They just believed there was a bank robber somewhere at the traffic stop. And on that basis, they stopped all these people, handcuffed them, and detained them when they didn't do their proper policing. Yet you see the total opposite here with the Batman shooting. Isn't that a greater crisis? All the loss of life, not just a bank robbery money, but they don't even hold these people up, ask them all questions, try to figure out if there was anyone else suspicious at the theater. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. These are questions that need to be investigated, but instead they just